You don't have to go to a restaurant to get good biscuits and gravy or even a regular drop biscuit. You can do that right at home, and I'm going to show you how. Seriously, this is so good. Let's start. To start, I'm cutting up 6 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to set it in the freezer until I'm ready for it because you want it as cold as possible. With that in the freezer, I'm going to sift my dry ingredients. So I'm putting in my sifter 2 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Next, I'm simply sifting all of this into my food processor. If you don't have a sifter, you could use a fine strainer. This recipe was taken from thechunkychef.com, and I'll have the full recipe linked in the description box below. With my dry ingredients sifted, I'm ready to add that cold butter. I'm going to pulse it until it looks like coarse crumbs. I was doubting the texture a little bit because it wasn't as butter heavy as I expected, but I put it in the bowl anyway. It came out perfect. So in the bowl it goes, and I'm going to make a well in the middle. Into that well goes 1 cup of buttermilk. Now I'm just going to stir it all together until all of the buttermilk is incorporated into my flour mixture. When it comes to mixing biscuits, less is always more, and you want to handle it as little as possible. So I was almost there, and so I'm just using the wet dough to get up any more of the dry ingredients. Now you want to turn it out onto a floured surface. I prefer using parchment paper, and you're going to see in a minute why this ended up being a very good idea. Next, I'm going to use my hands to pat the dough into a rectangle. I was getting a little bit perfectionist over this, so I got out my pizza roller to help me make it into a rectangle. Next, you're going to fold it over itself 6 times. I did not do 6 times. I did it as much as I could. So here you see the wisdom of the parchment paper. Because the dough was so wet, and you can add more flour if your dough is too wet, but I didn't want to add more flour. So I let the parchment paper do the work of folding the dough. I'm pressing down the dough again with my hands until it's about 1 inch thick. I didn't measure this. I didn't care if it was perfect. Mine was definitely thinner than 1 inch. You can use a biscuit cutter here, but I didn't want to worry about losing any of the dough or re-rolling it, so I decided to use a pizza cutter, and I divided it into 8 biscuits. Now this shows you the exact depth of my biscuits. Now I'm putting it on a new piece of parchment paper that's on my baking stone. You could also use a cookie sheet. You want them to be almost touching each other. You'll put them in a 450-degree oven for 12 to 15 minutes. As soon as they're brown, they're done. These came out absolutely beautiful, and you can brush them with melted butter if you choose. Now you need to hide them from your family until the sausage gravy is ready. I'm putting 1 pound of ground sausage into a skillet. I like the Jimmy Dean. If you like a little heat, the Jimmy Dean hot is very good. Once the sausage is cooked, you're going to be incorporating 1/3 of a cup of flour into it. So what I did was I put half of the 1/3 of a cup in, stirred it around, and let it get all incorporated, and then I put the rest of it in. This recipe is from the Pioneer Woman, and I'll also have this linked in the description box below. Once the flour is incorporated, you're going to be adding 3 to 4 cups of whole milk. I did 3 cups in mine, but you can just go by how thick you want your gravy to be. You'll add the milk slowly, bit by bit, stir it around, and once that amount thickens, add more. You'll also want to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and you could use seasoned salt to add more flavor, and 2 teaspoons of ground black pepper. Of course, feel free to add more salt and pepper to taste, and look how thick and bubbly it is. That's how you know it's ready. Now it's time to slice that biscuit, get some beautiful sausage gravy on top, and enjoy.
So I'm gonna let myself enjoy the fruit from this lucky day. Yeah, I am on my way up. I won't slow down. Yeah, I am on my way up. I won't slow down.
The biscuits and gravy were a huge hit. Today I wanted to make more biscuits, but I decided I didn't want to have to go through the whole pressing, folding process. So now I'm going to try some drop biscuits, and they are from the Pioneer Woman. So let's see how these turn out.
I'm putting 2 cups of flour into my food processor. No need to sift this time. 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now I'll cut up 1/2 a cup of cold, unsalted butter into cubes. I'm going to add that to my food processor, and I'm just going to pulse it 10 times. I love having those exact directions. Finally, I'll add 1 cup of whole buttermilk, and then I'll pulse it another 10 times. The goal is to see it clumping together. I'm going to put down parchment paper again, no need to oil it, and I'm just taking a cookie scoop and I'm scooping the dough onto the parchment paper. It could not be easier. This is what I truly love about drop biscuits. I'll put them in a 450-degree oven for 15 minutes or until they're golden brown. And look at that perfection.
Beautiful. Look at that. Golden brown on the bottom. Here's those drop biscuits all out of the oven. I'm going to try one. You see that? These are so good because they're crispy on the outside, but they're really soft on the inside. Definitely a keeper. I got 23 out of the whole batch. I could have definitely gotten 2 dozen, but I wasn't that careful. So I would say they make about 2 dozen. I'll leave it linked in the description box below.
If you like these biscuits, you're definitely going to love my pizza crust recipe. I'll leave it linked in the upper right-hand corner. And as always, remember that God loves you and I love you too, and I can't wait to see you next time.